Hi, everybody, and I'm Dr. Dion Klein, and I'm Director of the WISE Academy, and welcome to today's webinar, where I'm going to give you hopefully a little bit understanding of what this thing called SEO is, or search engine optimization. So what is search engine optimization? Well, first off, it's the process of improving the ranking results of a website in the natural or organic or what we would consider unpaid results of a search engine optimization. It's the major way in which the majority of internet users find new websites. Okay? So the question is, well, where do you rank on the search engine results page? In a sense, where do you rank on Google? So let me go back and explain a little bit about this natural slash organic or unpaid result versus a paid result. So when you go to Google, you'll see, there'll be a little square, and then it might say sponsored ad or an ad. Those are ads that people have paid for. When you scroll down and you just see the name and you basically see the websites or the name of the websites, that's what is called natural or organic results. And it's been shown that people trust more of those results as opposed to the sponsored ad, because how Google works, and we'll talk about this later, is they'll look at all this content and the actual keywords and then rank that and how many times people go to your websites, etc. And like the credibility of the site as opposed to paying for the site. So there's something called white hat versus black hat SEO. So white hat SEO are techniques that aim to improve a site by focusing on the visitors instead of ranking higher. Right, so it's a good way of getting traction. Some examples are creating organic, high-quality content and adding good descriptive keyword-rich meta tags. And the meta tags it's a technical term that happens behind the scenes, but the most important thing really to take away from this, for those of you who are not really tech savvy, is to make sure that the content that is on your website is high quality, that it's not just something that was respun or you bought a whole bunch of blogs and you're using it, that this is all original content. And that's not too hard to do. For example, as I'm doing these webinars, I'm recording them, I'll get somebody to transcribe, and then I'll create a very natural blog, which is stuff that I'm sharing. You can easily do the same thing. Now, black hat SEO, that's the bad stuff. Google doesn't like you doing this kind of search engine optimization. And these are illicit techniques that manipulate search engines to try to rank a site higher, and obviously thus violate Google's Webmaster Guidelines. And if you do want a copy of Google's Webmaster Guidelines, all you have to do is literally Google it, and they'll come up. They actually are quite open of how you can get better rankings and legally in that white hat situation. So some examples of black hat SEO is keyword stuffing, and I'll explain keyword in a bit. But it's basically like using a key phrase that gets higher ranking over and over again in the content to where it almost sounds unnatural in saying that keyword so much. Article spinning. So just like I said, if you do a blog, but you keep spinning that article, that there's really not a big difference from Article 1 to Article 2 to Article 3, Google's going to pick that up. They have really smart algorithms. So you need to really create that organic, original, high-quality content. And then the last one, I mean, there's plenty more. Please don't take it that it's these three examples. There's a whole list of examples, and once again, you can just look it up online. But this thing called link manipulation, or buying links, you don't see it too often anymore because people just really got slammed with that years ago when Google came out with one of its I don't know if it was Panda or some other one, but it really slapped a lot of pages that they would be ranking very high on the first page, and then they just went and cleaned all this stuff up, and a lot of those front number one pages basically fell off the ranking. Two main SEO strategies. So the one is called on-page or the on-site optimization. This is where you make changes to your HTML code, your content, or the structure of the website. This is a very useful way to optimize your website. Google loves this. And it's that practice of optimizing elements on a website in order to rank higher and earn more relevant traffic from search engines. Now, obviously, there's other search engines besides Google. There's Bing. There's a few others, but most people will use Google. So that's, in a sense, somewhat the standard. And so many websites or webmasters will aspire to have their website meeting Google's needs. The other SEO strategy is what's called off-page or off-site. Sorry, there's a typo. It should be off-site optimization. And all of the activities, these are all the activities that you and others do away from your website to raise the ranking of a page with search engines. So this is focused on building links to the website. It also covers such activities such as social media, digital PR or digital press releases, etc. So these are things that are off the site and creating links. So I'll give you an example. With these webinars, what I've been doing is I not only have the webinar, so then I'm recording it to the cloud, which then goes into a video, which goes into also an audio, and I can put that on my website. So the one links out to Zoom, where I have the audio recording. The other links out to YouTube, where I have the video. The other way that I use it is I'll copy and paste the URL into my LinkedIn site. So I have a LinkedIn page. So that's another link that goes back to my YouTube channel. And you know, those are just some examples. I may post the video on some other page, or I might, if it's relevant to some colleagues, that they could go, wow, can I link your page or that video to my site? More than happy to, because all of this it's very true, it's very real links, and it's also might be congruent with the topic areas that they are on, because that becomes important as well. Let's say, so I mentioned about keywords. So we have short tail keywords, and think of keywords as the things, or keywords or key phrases as the things you actually type into the search engine. So for example, short tail keywords, search phrases, it might only be 1 or 2 words. So I might type in shoes, or I might type in men's shoes, or blue shoes, or red shoes, right? These keywords are very short, and it's obviously very competitive when it comes to buying these keywords for advertisements. These long tail keywords, these are more 3 to 4 words long. Sometimes you'll hear long tail phrases or keyword phrases. And these are keywords which contain a large number of words, and they have much lower competition and do not require as much effort to optimize for. Now you might be questioning, well, what does he mean by competition? Not going to go into it in this webinar, but there's something called the Google Keyword Planner. And what you do is you go in there and you'll find these common keywords that people use for advertising, you know, for Google AdWords and AdSense, and even to a certain extent, you'll be looking at keywords that you use for Facebook as well, or any kind of advertising. So when you have a phrase, that's going to minimize the competition, because if I just type in shoes, just think about how many millions of websites or listings would appear for just shoes. But if I narrow it to men's brown shoes, size 7, Gold Coast, Australia, that's really going to start to narrow the number of search results that come in. And also, if I'm going to be using that phrase, I probably won't have to pay very much for that, because it's very succinct. Okay, it's really targeting a particular number of web pages for that. Now, mind you, and as I said, this is a bit more detail. When you go in there and you find out, well, nobody's using that keyword, that's another issue that you have to address, because you don't want to be, in a sense, bidding or paying for keywords for an ad that nobody's going to search for, and you're not going to get any response. Okay. When you go into Google, because of their AI and just because of their search and their algorithms, you can start to type in men's shoes and you can see what other listings come up. So Google will definitely give you some examples of keywords when you go into that keyword word planner if you're kind of stuck for it. Okay. So here's just an example of it. All right. So on this diagram here, you can see, well, a high cost and high competition. So if I just put the words in shoes, there's a lot of competition, and I'm probably going to have to pay a fair bit to use that word in any kind of any advertisements. My men's shoes, 2 to 3 word phrases. Okay. It's not as high a risk. Okay. It's not as competitive, but it's still, I'm probably going to have to pay a bit of money for each time I use that keyword in an ad. As I start to be more specific, such as Nike women's running shoes, more descriptive phrases, all right, I'm going to be going into a higher probability of conversion. It may be a lower cost, now maybe not using Nike, but just so you get the understanding of the phrase, that I won't have to pay as much because it may not be as much more of a competitive phrase. In the long tail search, in long tail SEO, you can see it counts for 70% of the searches, and the yields average of 36% conversion rate. So you'll actually have a higher, you'll have a pretty good conversion rate with this more descriptive. And as people get more understanding of even how to search, that becomes more important as well. So if you can understand the keywords in simple terms, is what would people ask for? What are they looking for? So if I'm looking at a fitness center, I might write down group exercise class, Gold Coast, Australia. All right. So that's a phrase. I can even be more specific. Maybe if I'm going to type in a particular type of group exercise, right? So you as an organization or as a business have to do some reflection of what terms are people using to find my business. And then that can give you an indication of what keywords you can put in your ads and also in part of your content when you start writing blogs and even adding content to your web page to describe the activities or the programs that you have in your company. And one of the things that I think many businesses get confused is not only of what is this search engine optimization, but now, like, I can't do this myself. I don't know how to do it. It seems really complicated. I'll just find somebody who can do it for me, which is fair enough. And I myself do this because I don't have all the time in the world either to go in and do all the ins and outs. I know what it is. I know, in a sense, how to do it. But when I want to get really intricate, I'd rather hire a professional. So what I'm going to share with you as we finish is I'm going to share with you 10 questions to ask any SEO service provider or anybody who says, I can help you get your website ranked much better. So the first question is going to be, first off, when you go to them, do they ask about your business objectives as well as your traffic and ranking goals? You know, first off, if they don't understand your business, there's no way they can put together a program to ensure that your website is going to get up in the rankings. They really have to get to know your business, who's your target market, what are your goals, what's your call to action when they come to your website. Do you want them to sign up for a webinar? Do they want you to sign up for a course? Do you want them, does the client, or do you want when people go to your website to sign up for the newsletter, to collect the email address? You have to be very clear about that. And if they don't ask you about your business objectives, they're probably going to get it wrong from the start. So that's the very first thing. And I wouldn't even divulge that information. You can always say, well, what questions do you have for me? And see what they ask. The second one is, do they review your website content and structure? So do they look at the on-page SEO? So, if you already have a website, which most people do nowadays, there's some that don't, is they'll say, well, look, let me look at your website and let me do maybe a content audit or an SEO audit on it. And then they can measure, like even with Google Analytics, they might say, well, do you have Google Analytics on your site? If you don't know, well, hopefully you do, but many organizations do not have Google Analytics on. Anyway, if you do, that company should go in then and see how many people use your site, how long they stay there, using the video, etc. All that stuff is there. The third thing is, do they offer keyword planning? Okay, so once again, that goes back to your business objectives. So they go through and go, okay, well, let's look at the keywords that we feel that you should be using for your business. All right, do they offer a separate consultation? As I said, will they tailor a campaign to suit your keywords versus your budget? What is their plan for building or renovating your website using the related keywords? So these are some things you need to be cognizant about. The fourth one is, what's the quality of their content that they're proposing to generate for you? So you might want to look at some of their other sites, ask them if they're any good, they should have a portfolio and they should share it with you. Look at that content and determine, well, is it well written? Do they have grammatical or spelling errors? Find out if they wrote the content or if their client wrote the content. And, when you look at the keywords that they're using, are those keywords really relevant to the client or to the topic or to the business? Very important. And then another one is, does their SEO plan include citations and directory listings? So if they see that is one way of doing it. So directory listing is, even if you just Google it, directory listing submission site, there's various submission sites that you can put your just copy and paste your domain name on, your address, and it can go into that listing. It's almost like a Yellow Pages, but it's free. Now, whether you actually get some traction from those directory listings, once again, it depends on that directory listing organization itself. I've put our directory listing, one of our companies, on a bunch of directory listing sites, and it hasn't really done that much. But once again, it could be the various directory listings that were there, the submission sites, or it could have been a competitive space. It's something to ask them about, though. The next question to ask is, what is their linking procedure? Okay, if they offer, well, we'll do a linking procedure, ask them, where do they get their links from? How much will it cost? Can they prove that the links that they're getting are reputable and relevant? Another question to ask is, do they have specific market expertise? And there's pros and cons to this. If they do have specific market expertise, that's good, but then at the same time, they may be using the same keywords for who might be your competitors. So just see what kind of market expertise that they have. And the other question you can ask is, ask, well, if you do have this market expertise, say in education, how will I know that the keywords and what you plan for me is not just a duplication of what you planned for, basically one of my competitors? Can they show proven results? All right. So can they show that what they do actually works? Really important. Do they have testimonials? What is their pricing structure? Be careful. You get what you pay for. My mom always said that, and to a certain extent, she's always been true. So you can go to a lot of online portals, freelancers, and use the freelancers. I'll just go for the cheapest one. And I've done that. And sometimes I went for the cheapest one, and even though they might have racked up a $40 bill, it was a waste of time. Not that much money, but they didn't do what I wanted them to do. You might be better off paying a little bit extra and actually getting what you want, and also showing those results. And then lastly, do they provide written reports and regular communication? So you need to know going back to that first question, is what do you want to have happen? So if you go, look, I want more people to my seminar and therefore more registrations, then you need to put them on a plan and say, well, we're 3 weeks out. By week 1, I want this many registrations. And maybe it's not if you don't get the registrations, at least you want to make sure that the metrics show that people are coming to your site. If they're coming to your site and your landing page, but they're not converting, then that might be an issue you have to look at and question, well, why aren't they converting? Because the person that's doing the SEO, they might be doing their job by driving it to the landing page, but it may not be their responsibility to convert it. That's your conversion, which means what offer are you giving? So those are just 10 questions that you can use in, if you do decide to use an SEO service provider, ask them these questions, all right? And if they get offended, they're probably going to be the wrong company to work with anyway. So beware. This is a real biggie, all right? If they promise results from only one specific service offering, for example, building 500 links or updating a Google business listing or social media likes, if they promise that they can get you on page 1 in 2 weeks' time and you're on page 5 or 6, I would just be very wary of anybody who promises that they can get you on Google on page 1, because if they say that, then I would very much question and saying, okay, well, please explain to me how you're going to do that using white hat techniques. And even if you say something like that, they'll know that you have the correct terminology. So thank you very much again for your time and attention. If you want any more information on our courses, please go to wiseacademy.edu.au. Thanks again and have a great day.